Hello, and welcome to a new webinar series focusing on Quality 4.0, brought to you by HighQA. I am Lisa Sterling, your host and moderator for today's session. Before we get started, I would like to mention a couple of housekeeping items. We invite you to ask questions throughout the presentation by typing in your Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen, as your phone is muted during the session. We will address the questions received at the end of the presentation. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available in a few days. I would now like to introduce you to our presenters. First, we will have Sam Golan, founder and CEO of HighQA, followed by Bob Petrini, president of Chick Machine Company, who will have with him Bobby Petrini, customer and supplier partnership manager, and Jacob Schurer, quality manager for Chick Machine. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Sam.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you all for taking the time today. Talking about automation, collaboration, integration with a trusted data from the data source, which actually is 2D or 3D file, all the way to FAI and other reporting and everything in between, is a key success factor reaching the goal for Quality 4.0. I think the biggest question is where quality is today and what are the gaps quality needs to close getting there. When we talk about a Quality 4.0, and Quality 4.0 actually is a subset from the Industry 4.0, which the four represent four industrial revolution, if you will. The first industrial revolution happened when steam created as the first source of power. And the second industrial revolution from the early 19th, when electrical is created, enables production line to work. And the third revolution from early 1970, when computing, automation, and robotics replacing people mainly on repeated jobs. And the fourth revolution, which is here, in the 21st century, Industrial 4.0, connect the Internet of Things, the IoT, as we all know, actually talking about manufacturing techniques to enable systems to share information, analyze it, and use it real time to guide us to take intelligent action. Real quality actually started in mid-1940 when a guy called Stanley Parker invented the true position, and then the GD&T followed after. As Quality 4.0 is a subset of each one of the industrial revolution, we can look into the quality actually started on the second industrial revolution. And the question is how much progress quality made in terms of automation, integration, collaboration. We'll find it out. Let's take a quick example. If we're going to look into these CNC processes making this part, and the question is how long it takes to make tool pass to this part, usually 1 hour, 1.5 hours, sometimes low than that. This, by the way, created by a CAD/CAM company called Cimatron in many years ago. Now it has a different name. But actually, if we look into CAD/CAM industry, started to evolve in mid-70s, about 45 years ago, enabling seamless and automated design to manufacturing. And since then, actually CAD/CAM became more advanced, intuitive, faster moving from wireframe technology to solid model technology, and enabling realistic design and manufacturing, including analysis like flow and stress analysis and much more. But let's take a look into the quality side, and we'll ask the question how long it takes, right, to create a print, bubble it, extract GD&T to inspection plan, creating in-process inspection, assign inspection tool, collecting data, and so on and so forth. 370 minutes. Those are average time that we measure. And the question is, why it takes so long? And what will happen if we will have to add more quality activities? We need SPC, we need APQP, we need to create sampling, lot management, and so on and so forth. One of the biggest reasons is what you see on the screen. And I'm not sure how close to CAD/CAM today, but more than 80% of the industry still making bubble prints by using pen on pencil, and then extracting GD&T to an Excel manually. There is some big gaps when we talk about quality 4.0, when 80% of the industry is still doing it manually. Let's take another example. How many software packages we need to complete quality jobs from A to Z? And we can count them one by one, and this is just examples, many of them. And then where is all data that we are generating from each one of these application or this solution goes? Can we get it real time? It's a big question. Here's another example. There are hundreds of inspection tools types, tens of thousands measurement tools, from manual to Bluetooth wireless, CMM, vision, arms, laser, you name it, you have it. And actually, those inspection tools are growing daily. The question is not just about measuring part, right? But where this data goes, either on a written piece of paper, typing on Excel, even clicking on Bluetooth tools, where all this data goes and when it is available to me when I need it. Maybe we'll take another example, talking about statistical process control, SPC, which is an industry standard methodology for measurement and controlling quality for the manufacturing process. Actually, SPC is a growing demand by OEM from their suppliers, and it's adding a significant burden and cost that require expertise and another software solution in many cases, among many others that are already part of the quality process. Well, we can go on and on. Maybe last example, we can talk about the APQP. And the APQP consists of multiple packages and activities and forms and workflows. As you know, FMEA, PFMEA, control plan, and what software people are using, talking about 99% of the industry. We all know Excel. But not just Excel, it's Excel on steroids. You can find proud people based on how many tabs they have on the APQP Excel file. By the way, no doubt those people are amazingly skilled and talented. But again, it's done manually. And the question again, it's about data. We have data, a lot of data, and we have data here and we have data in data collection. And the question is where all this data goes when I need it. So one of our strategic customers, I'm just trying to quote what he told us. I have a lot of data, but I don't have information. My data is spread all over the places in endless software folders, as well as shared or hard copies in boxes, reports, plans. And we have in-process inspection and SPC. And the question is what I'm going to do with it. I can do with it actually nothing, because it's spread all over the place. And my hope is that no customers will come and complain, so I will not spend 2 weeks trying to find out the data. And this is what he told us. I have a lot of data, but zero information when I need it. And that's when we talk about quality 4.0. As a quality guys, we have a lot of data. The question is, do we have information when we need it? Because quality is an integral part of manufacturing. And it seems that we are only chasing manufacturing by adding more and more inspection tools to be better, and to be better actually with go, no go, or good part or bad part. And this is what quality considered today. But we are in a stage, or we are in a point that we need to change it. We need to change the notion of go, no go department and try to close the gap of 45 years of being completely almost manual. Okay, so what I would like to share with you a little bit about HighQA, what we do in order to help the industry to really not just get closer to quality 4.0, but actually implement quality 4.0. So HighQA is a quality management system. We enable any company that does any manufacturing at any size to manage their manufacturing quality processes from A to Z. And if I will go here just quickly about our current customers, we have about 700 plus customers, starting from Lockheed Martin BAE system, and you can take it from the OEM level all the way down to a small job shop, because we enable also supply chain management. Looking into all-in-one system, that this is actually quality 4.0, you can see that there are three sections, if you will, on quality processes. There is downstream preparation, where you take 2D print or 3D model and convert it to a quality requirement. And then comes the layer of shop floor data collection, and then comes the layer of reporting. And if you look into the starting point, which is the 2D or 3D creating part, all the way to reporting, and you will count how many systems or how many Excel type you are using to complete one job, you know better than me. It can be 5, 3, 10, or much more. And the idea, it's all in one. And the reason that we are talking about quality 4.0, because it started that it's all database-driven application. So there is no need anymore to do save as in folder X, Y, or Z and try to find it. Then there is a layer of API, because we live as a quality management system with other systems like ERP, PLM, and other, and we can integrate with them. There is a layer of security on the user level and on the company level. And then come the data source, 2D or 3D model. Then come the layer of the PQP, as I mentioned earlier. This is no longer Excel, it's an application, and it's integrated with the entire process. And then come the layer of functionality that enable us to do A to Z. And then all it's assigned to the shop floor or supplier, come the data collection and reporting. And it's all in one system. Quickly talk about it. When we talk about automation, as you remember, somebody does all this process manually. There is one click, GD&T extraction, and all the balloon created automatically bill of characteristic. It means that we are taking away interpretation from people. We support 3D, as I mentioned earlier, and we support 3D in a way that we also closing the gap. When you get 3D model, it's mainly limited dimension or just critical dimension, but the model describes the part and quality is the process, and we close the gap between what we call MBD to real quality processes. And then, of course, comes the layer of APQP. And the APQP, as I mentioned, is no longer Excel. There is a large and extensive repository out of the box of many forms, many reports, many workflows, signature, electronic signature, etc. As you see here, all the process of FMEA, it's done as an application, not as an Excel. So it's repeated and you can use it again and again. Then come what we call the checklist. If this is a project, then you can see all your projects in one view. And once you've completed the forms, then the system will create the submission package and can send it to your customer with the part. So talking about shop floor data collection, As I mentioned, it's all in one. So data collected from all type of inspection tool, manual, inspection tool, Bluetooth, wireless, you name it. But it's not just collecting data on piece of paper. It's going directly to the database. When you see the SPC or out of the tolerance, everything is real time. I can correct my process if I need to do it because I see exactly what happened in every dimension that I'm measuring. Then come the richness of reporting, as we said, from 2D print or 3D model, all the way to reporting and everything in between in one solution. So kind of in this point, what I would like to do is, again, thank you for taking the time today. And what I would like to do is ask our colleague, Chick Machine, to share with us their story. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you again for joining our web seminar today. Bob?
Thank you, Sam. Yes, my name is Bob Petrini. I'm the president of Chick Machine. I have with me today Bobby Petrini and Jake Schurer. Jacob is a quality engineer, process engineer, helps us with all of the information that you see here today with HighQA gathering measurements and managing the instruments that do those measurements, understands GD&T very well and how to make conforming, validate that we have conforming parts. Bobby joined us a few years ago as a manager of customer experience and chief networking officer here. He's got a lot of contacts. As a matter of fact, that's how I found Chick Machine to begin with, was through Bobby's contacts. And my personal experience, I was a financial person for most of my career, several transactions where I was a minority partner and sold before I was ready to sell, but learned from that lesson that it was more fun operating a company than selling one. So here I am as a majority owner of a small machine shop, ready to build something we can be proud of and then hand it over to Bobby, hopefully, at some point. So today we're going to talk about our journey with HighQA, the inspiration to start there, you know, what were the pains that caused us to get going down this path, where we are currently, and then what our goals are for the future, lessons learned along the way, and then a question and answer session. So Chick Machine is a company of 32 employees, headquartered here in western Pennsylvania, about 35 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. We're 32,000 square feet, developed from history, now in our 50th year, customer concentration with a customer that's just 5 miles down the road. Got our roots in CO2 lasers and making a lot of laser components. So you can see one of our skills and capabilities there is vacuum brazing that's used for air and water-cooled mirrors made of oxygen-free copper. And that's something that when I got here in 2017, wanted to focus on maintaining the great machining capabilities we had, but also diversify the customer base and go out and see what the rest of the world has to offer. And so that required getting some skills in these other areas. And today we want to focus on enhancing our inspection and documentation, which is, as we got new customers, we got new demands, and understanding what those were and how to respond to them quickly. So same measurements were taken, but how we managed that information was different. And I think Sam accurately described we were probably operating in an industry 2.0. For a long time, it was, if you can't measure it, you can't make it. These guys here know that very well. It's just they weren't ready to necessarily show their work. So we invested in HighQA Inspection Manager to help get us where it was presentation ready for the customer.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. And then kind of getting to the inspiration, this is Bobby, by the way, for HighQA. Specifically the aerospace requirements around new product introduction and beyond, we started to see a bottleneck emerged probably about a year ago. So naturally, we started seeing parts pile up in quality. The team was starting to be overworked, and we stopped and said, what's going on? What's driving all of this? We can machine the parts. We have the capability. We can inspect the parts. We have that capability. But when we started to dig down deep, we started to see that we didn't necessarily have the documentation capability. We kind of did it wrong, and we didn't do it at the right time. Some examples were, again, the machinists inspected parts on the floor to ensure they were good, but they were just looking for that feedback for themselves that it was a good part. But that's not good enough for an AS9102. Trust me, it's good is not going to work, and checking part of it and writing down part of the inspection plan is not good enough. So what ended up happening was all of that work unfortunately got shifted or collected by final quality. So not only were they creating these handwritten inspection reports in AS9102s, which is what you could see on the left hand there, but they were rechecking the parts because they had to verify that they were good parts, and they were, but it was handwritten. And then aside from the handwritten inspection, with the CMM reports, we would print, I think there was one day we did a 337 part job, 100% inspection, all checked on the CMM, but our output was 700 pages of PDF, which is, you can't search that, you can't aggregate that, you can't summarize that, and quite frankly, it doesn't meet the needs, and it's not customer friendly, right? So and we didn't save it, right? So it was part of the catalyst that made us say, all right, what would this look like if it were easier? There has to be some process changes that we can make, and there has to be software out there that can help us support. So that's really what kicked us off on the search, and my dad could touch on what got us started.
Yeah, so what we did after that, recognizing that the process was inadequate for the volume of measurements and the way in which we needed to present them to the customer, started a search on Google for what else is out there, looked in Modern Machine Shop, just did some searching around, and located two different software packages, one being HighQA that we put through watched the demos, did the test drive. The balloon printing, the auto ballooning, and the bill of characteristics was really grabbed our attention quickly with HighQA, and we started on our way. And that's something we'll talk about too, is that I think it's really important not to wait until it's perfect, but just to get something going and figure it out as you go, because you can learn a lot and learn really quickly by doing. So we had some false starts. We bought what we thought we needed, and then we had to go back and buy more, and then we had to go back and change what we bought. But we, that was probably a 6-month process before things stabilized. But we had initially thought we could gather shop floor measurements with Excel sheets and then import the data back into the HighQA database. We also thought that the PC DMIS information, the output from the CMMs, could be written to a CSV file or some Excel form and then later imported. So we had a lot of multiple touches of the data. We had to handle it when it was first recorded and then handle it again to import it into the database. Found that was not an efficient way to do it, and that's when we discovered that the IME product, the application, I mentioned that to Jake, that he sees HighQA as a pretty holistic, fully integrated application and with a lot of components. The shop floor guys see the IME as HighQA. It's all they see and all there is, and but it's very user friendly. It's as I mentioned to Sam, a lot of user empathy was built into that side of the system so that they can see their feature they're measuring, they can understand the tolerances right away, they can get immediate feedback. There's a toggle switch to indicate, am I in metric or am I in English? So Jacob worries about what's the native print, is it English or is it metric? That's centralized. Now it's decentralized. How do you want to see it? Do you want to see it metric? Do you want to see English? It's just a single toggle switch to flip back and forth. So very user-friendly, very quick. We don't have guys on the floor doing translations on their phone and, hopefully getting them right, but often getting them wrong and just eliminating that chance for error. So a lot of good things came out of moving through that process.
Yeah, and one thing to add when we got started, again, I think just getting started with the QA plans up front, we went from what was, at our shop at least, somewhat of a decentralized process where the, individual machinists and their supervisors would be forming these plans to inspect their part. Sometimes we would be able to reuse them, sometimes we wouldn't, so it was redundant work. So we went from decentralized planning to centralized, where you make it once, make it well, store it, and reuse it. And then from a centralized inspection at the very end, again, when the unfortunate guys in final inspection were rechecking parts, to a decentralized inspection where you kind of share the burden of checking and documenting, and then at the end, we're just verifying. So although it was a little bit suboptimal with the Excel sheets to start, it was much improved from the handwritten notes across the shop. And then Jake's going to touch on kind of where we're at today.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Cool. All right, Chase.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Where we're at today, every released production order at Chick Machine goes through a QA planning, HighQA step. So the obvious output of that is every single released order, at a minimum, has a ballooned print, which we all know is beneficial. Once those prints are ballooned, though, that's where we get into the detail of the quality planning, which I think is where we're seeing most of the value with HighQA. The bill of characteristics is combed over by a quality engineer. Tolerances are verified. More importantly, at that step, that's where we define the method of measurement. So what gauge are we going to be using? HighQA enables us to have a list of gauges in-house, which we'll touch on later, and how that affects our calibration system. But there's a complete list there of what gauges we're going to use to measure what features. And also at that step in the process, that's where we're defining the frequency at which something is going to be measured. In previous roles in previous companies, as Sam alluded to, all of that was built on Excel spreadsheets. And as a matter of comfort, it looked nice and it was easy to follow once it was on the shop floor. But again, it proved to be inefficient in a number of ways. So that released order, again, has a balloon print. Bill of characteristics are established, how we're going to measure it is established, and at what frequency is established. So at that point, the job's released to the floor, and this is where Inspection Manager Explorer comes into play, or as we're calling it, IME. So IME is the interface that comes along with this package that enables the machinist to measure and input that data into IME at the machine. As a former quality engineer and process engineer, and now QA manager, we talk a lot about driving quality to the machine, at the machine. And that is, in principle, best practice, but in reality, it's difficult to implement at times. IME has enabled us to do this not quite seamlessly, but near net seamlessly, because it is so simple to use. And again, the way that it is integrated with HighQA, it's enabled us not just to aggregate data, but really create what I see as process control. So I think that's an underlying theme here is, yes, we can aggregate data. Yes, we can display it real time, collect it real time. But from my perspective as QA manager, more importantly, we can engineer and we can launch tight, controlled processes for every job that comes through the shop. So as those parts are being measured at the machine in process, data is being aggregated, we get into the automated methods of measurement, whether that be CMM, air gauging, key-in systems. The machine sync capability of HighQA is also beautiful in that when we establish the bill of characteristics, the dimension numbers are made such that they align with the PCDMIS or the CMM program feature numbers. As long as those dimension IDs match, when it comes across the CMM and machine sync is on, all of the data from the CMM is then also aggregated into the HighQA database. Again, previous life, that would have been another mediating software that would help you with your data and help get it to where you want it to be. HighQA has the ability to do that for us, one-stop shop. So at that point, we've got a fully machined, completed order, the fully baked inspection in process and final, and then we would get into the easy reporting aspect of HighQA, where we're spinning out AS 9102 first article inspection reports. We're doing full-blown dimensional inspection reports and much more from that.
Yeah, and something to add to what Jake just said, specifically on IME, if you look at from where we were with the Excel inputs to where we are with IME, again, our machinists are machinists, and they're fantastic at making, beautiful dimensionally inspect parts, but they're not Excel wizards, right? So there was a lot of struggle with even data input. So there was a ton of time on the floor troubleshooting these Excel sheets. So from a POCIO perspective and mistake proofing the process, this has been fairly successful. You have to have leadership support to do this, which, my dad will touch on in lessons learned. But without traction and pull from the floor, it's a fruitless mission. So specifically on IME, we've run out of licenses at times because people are using it, which is a good thing, which is also a good thing, I'm sure, for Sam, because we have to buy more. And another thing on top of that, we've had some of our lead inspectors demand computers being rearranged and put on the floor where they do their bench inspections because they don't want to walk back and forth, which is a good thing, right? We didn't have that pull with the Excel sheets. We are getting that pull with IME, which, again, if we could fuel that fire, we're going to do that, and this seems like a relatively light lift, to get traction on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the traction on the floor came from also Jake's people would go out when a job was assigned and help the machinist understand how to use that interface, how to use that application. And once you get using it, it's pretty, the learning curve is pretty not very steep. So, and also you can see the drawing there. I don't know if you can see that on the screen, but the drawing the feature they're on and the feature they're entering measurements for is displayed. And then that can be, you can zoom in, zoom out. You can see right away the feedback loop is immediate with respect to are you in or out of tolerance. So there's a lot of value add that's way beyond what you could have done with just Excel. And then the added benefit is when they enter that measurement, it's directly into the database. It's not sitting there in an Excel sheet waiting for import later.
So next steps for us in regards to implementation, we want to complete machine sync for all possible measurement sources. So I mentioned we have automated CMMs here. We also have some other automated inspection equipment. Anything that essentially isn't a hand tool or a hand measurement device can output a CSV file, and again, that syncs up with machine sync and aggregates that inspection data back to the HighQA database. So that's one of our goals. With that, increase our use of the measurement data to drive SPC and APQP. So we are half job shop, half production shop. Aggregating that data obviously applies to production runs where there's much more volume, but standardizing that and leveraging the statistical side of this is what our capability is obviously where the industry is pushing us and where we want to go, especially with HighQA. Sam and his team understand that you can intelligently reduce inspection with proof through statistical process control. And I've not seen an application thus far that enables you to do that within the module itself. We want to fully utilize manufacturing operations within HighQA to build out sampling plans. I did not touch on this yet, but manufacturing operations are essentially the mini inspection plans within a process. So a lot of times in this industry, we're going to be making parts that are bare and then send them out to be processed, whether that's being plated, anodized, what have you. HighQA enables you through manufacturing operations to essentially be the manufacturing engineer as well as the quality engineer and create a subset of manufacturing tolerances that you want to hold your parts and your dimensions to so that when the part goes out for plating and there is dimensional buildup, it comes back in tolerance. Again, previous life, that was always done in a different department, on a different platform, different software. It was effective, but it was not efficient. HighQA, through manufacturing operations, enables us to do that all within one plan at the same time. We want to migrate our homegrown calibration system to HighQA. I mentioned this earlier. We have a database that houses all of our gauges and calibration information. We're in the process of making sure that is clean before we import to HighQA, and part of the benefit of that is HighQA, as we get into using SPC cables on hand tools as well as Bluetooth connections, HighQA will learn that gauge 123 is actually gauge X. And once we name that gauge within the HighQA database, it will know wherever that gauge goes and whenever that gauge outputs a measurement that it was gauge XYZ. Again, previous life we would handwrite the gauge ID or the inspector at that time. Once we have our calibration system, all of our gauges aggregated in HighQA, it will automatically tell us what measured, what part, what feature, when, and by who.
And that will also inform, Jake, of metrology needs of how often are we using this gauge, how often are we using whatever measurement device we're using, so that we can understand the utilization and the needs. Maybe there's a shortfall, maybe there's a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, and then just one other thing on next steps is, I joke with Jake, but it is sincere. Doing the right thing in quality is the right thing to do, but it's also, we can weaponize our quality capability to drive sales. Don't, tell me, show me. And a lot of times, PowerPoints and words only take you so far with the customer. The ability to kind of show the customer with their data our handle on quality and inspection and ability to demonstrate that fairly quickly is powerful, right? It shows that we're on the right track. We're embracing technology to serve them, right? So that is, I have found a pretty effective tool and communication tool with our customers.
Okay, so lessons learned. This is an organizational change, typical thing that happens. The CMMs were early adopters. All the inanimate objects were, they didn't put up much of a fight. The humans always do. So learn, as you do with any type of organizational change, top management support is critical. The mandate is interpreted as a mild suggestion at times by the humans, and you've got to convince them that, this is better and here's the reasons why. Give them a lot of why, give them a lot of help and attention, as Jake did on the floor with, hey, here's how we do it. I know it was on paper before. Writing out 4 decimals is sometimes pretty tedious, and if you could hit a button and get those 4 decimals right in the database, maybe that is a better way to do it. And getting that going and fully explaining the why, I think, helped a lot. And then there was unfortunately some times when people just fought it hard enough that, said, maybe there's another shop down the road that would value your, how you want to approach this. And that way, everybody gets the idea that this is going to happen. So, and it did.
I'll just add to that. I think probably a lot of the shops, any workplace, you want to drive accountability and transparency where you can. And in the inspection plan up front, very clearly states this is what's expected. These are the features that are expected. This is we're setting a job expectation ahead of time, and it creates, if you're trying to drive accountability culture, it's a job aid to help with that. So again, it's going to help lean into the teammates that are going to grow with you and help support that culture, and at the same time it might make some teammates uncomfortable. But ultimately we get paid for making 100% on-spec parts, right? We don't get paid for 80% or 85%. So.
Yeah, and then the other is the early reps, and we mentioned that we made some missteps. One good thing about the software, it's easy to delete records, so if you make mistakes and make a mess of something, you can just highlight all those records and hit delete, and you're off and running. So that's part of it, and then the other part is understanding what modules you need and what modules are best suited for what you're doing. And so we found out that machine sync was something we really valued, and that was to get all that CMM data automatically populating in the software, and then also the IME, so that the shop floor measurements were gathered in a way that was efficient and useful and easy for the floor to adopt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is Jacob. I'd also add to that, I think part of what has made HighQA easy to work with and roll out changes is that it never really boxes you in to a certain way of doing things. To be transparent, we probably were not for a fact using HighQA as it was designed in a number of ways early on. And Sam's team with Stacy and others helped us realize quickly this is not exactly how it was designed, and if you turn on this feature, it actually is more friendly, more efficient, et cetera. So again, some softwares I've seen box you in, and if it's not 100% to design, it literally will not function. HighQA was forgiving in that manner and allows you to learn as an organization with it.
Yeah, so I guess the lesson there too is no software, no matter what you adopt, no matter what you buy, is going to be very useful unless you actively engage with it. So it's like buying a car. You got to drive it. You got to sit in the driver's seat and take it for a spin. You can't sit in the passenger seat and hope it, solves your problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we talk about we want to be a world-class machine shop, but then you look around, how many world-class machine shops are handwriting inspection and scanning, printing, and then scanning 700 pages of a job pack, right? So at some point we were like, this is not industry leading. It's
not who we want to be.
Something different. Cool. All right. So with that, that's kind of our story, our journey. We're still very much in the early stages. We're happy with the gains that we've made, but we know there's still a ways to go. But I think we're gonna open up the questions. Lisa, do you want to take over here?
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Sam and Bob and team, for sharing your knowledge and also your real life examples. That was great. So at this time, we will open the floor for Q&A. Again, just a reminder that you can type your questions into the Q&A tab that you will find at the bottom of your screen. So let's take a look at the questions that have come in thus far. The first question is, what was the most difficult part of implementation? And that would be for Chick Machine.
Yeah, I'd say the most difficult part was the people side of it, the how to get adoption, how to get buy-in, and that's still going on. That's still a process of probably the most effective way to do that was having Jake's people out on the floor, holding hands, getting them through, getting to the other side of that fear of the unknown, and that's probably just a normal thing.
Yeah, I just add, again, not being afraid to roll out changes. As I already mentioned, the software is very forgiving, and I think there's many times where we saw a new feature or button we could turn on, and there's always that thought in the back of my mind as owner of that department, is this going to screw things up if I do it? Well, we embrace failing fast. Well, let's do it. Let's see how it works. And once we got comfortable with failing fast, we've started to see over the last 6 months that adoption and implementation on the floor start to increase.
Nice. Okay, well, here's another one for you. Why HighQA over other products?
Yeah, I'll start with that. Again, Jacob here. I've seen in past roles as a quality engineer and process engineer similar softwares. The main difference is that those softwares would auto balloon, just like HighQA. They had all the similar technology, but they were still segregated and divorced from other processes. Other processes such as the data aggregation side, other process such as manufacturing, dimensions, tolerancing, or engineering, other processes such as the APQP module, which we're excited to embrace here. All of those being divorced and separated from HighQA, it really just, or from these previous softwares, really made things slow and details would be missed. It relied heavily on communication between departments. When I joined the team here with Bob and Bobby, and I saw HighQA, and I saw how integrated everything was, Sam isn't joking when he says it is a true database solution. So we're excited, and my team's excited, that we're able to build an advanced quality plan all within HighQA, not in Excel, not in Visio or something like that. So to me, that was the difference maker.
I'd add to that, although this was after we chose, but something that I appreciated. So we're not a big company yet. We didn't make their customer slide yet. We might be on that next year. or in 10 years. But anyways, that being said, we had a big meeting on a Friday, and it was Thursday, and I'm in the SPC module. I could not get to work, and we were still new at this. It's not the software; it's usually the user. And they got it done by 7 a.m. Friday to help us get through that to get ready for a 10 a.m. meeting, right? So for a company of our size, we are not a Fortune 100 or even close to that. We got that almost overnight support. We were ready for our meeting at 10 a.m. the next day with our, again, showing them their data in SPC, which is a lot more powerful than PowerPoint. That was something that I appreciated from a sales angle, and, knowing that we don't necessarily command the same buying power as a, Fortune 100 aerospace company.
Yeah, and the fact that all those measurements were in one database made it possible, and if they were in 17 different spreadsheets or whatever number, that would not have been possible.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Here is another one for Bob and team. Would you use HighQA without IME?
Personally, no. I guess the only reason I would do that is if you weren't doing any shop floor measurements. That's how I see that. If you're pure CMM, I might consider it.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Bob. I think, again, back to the principle and the ideal of driving quality to the machine, unless all of those measurements are automated and not done by a human, I would say there's no need for it. But as far as just the ability to have the data aggregated while at the same time drive accountability, feature accountability to a specific machine, operator, machining operation, has proved to be very, very beneficial.
Okay.
In addition to just a data input tool, it's also communicating what features are we measuring. So if you're effectively, we've done it wrong and we've done it right, but if you do it wrong, you list every bill of characteristics and they step through each one. So they see what they're supposed to see and they also see what they're not supposed to see. But then if you do it in a way that it's filterable and they only see what they're supposed to measure, then it becomes pretty powerful and pretty efficient in that there is no noise, there's only signal, and it's purely these are the 6 things you're going to measure. And so it becomes very efficient and very user-friendly.
Perfect. Well, thank you. We've had several more questions come in, so let's take the next one. It says, being that the data is centralized, how would one segregate or handle classified and non-classified designs?
I will answer it. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Sam.
Yep. Let me, I want to share my screen if you don't mind. Can you stop sharing your screen, Bob, your side? So I'll do it just quickly. I can, I think I share my screen. You cannot. Okay. I think I can. Let me, this is the, I got to the last, can you see my PowerPoint slide, guys?
Not quite yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me try again. Okay, here it is. Okay, here, share screen, share.
It's loading.
Now,
Yes, we're here.
now you can see it?
Yes.
All right. So my slide, my last slide was here because I wanted to give more time to Chick Machine to speak. But the next slide actually supposed to be this one about this question. So in my presentation, in the second, third slide was the security layer. And aside of managing users and credential, what they can do and what they cannot do, there is what we call the access control. And the system actually segregates between location, department, teams, and users. And talking about large OEM, which I will not mention names here, but actually you can segregate the data that certain people in certain departments and certain locations could access only, and nobody can see it at all. So we can segregate and separate data sets in the database on a specific team that can use it, not only in one location, it can be in multiple locations or multiple departments. So we have this one as well. I think there was another question that I think I saw. There was a question about integration with ERP. Am I right, Lisa, there?
Yes, that is on the list.
So, okay. I will answer it as well, if you don't mind.
Yes,
And
thank you.
again, in this slide, again, I make it a little bit bigger here. Okay, if you remember, I started to say this is a centralized database-driven solution. And here is external application integration via API, which is application programming interface. We enable any third-party software to integrate with our software. And it's not only one way, we communicate both ways. It can be ERP, it can be PLM, it can be any software. An API is a standard interface for every or any third-party software that consider itself as an enterprise solution. So API enables you to integrate. With that being said, I just want to mention that we are already integrated with a couple of large ERP like SAP or Oracle, which is ERP as well, and some even smaller ERP system and PLM, of course, as well, like Teamcenter. I think it's Teamcenter and Windchill. One of them is ProE and one of them is Siemens. Okay.
Here's another one for you, Sam. Does it work well with PDF type prints?
Can you repeat, please?
Sure. Does it work well with PDF type prints?
It works very well with PDF print. It works very well with TIFF print, TIF. It can work even with JPEG. So we work with all kind of 2D that represent any type of drawing, but it's the GD&T main. Yes, the answer is yes, it is.
Okay, this question is also for you, Sam. Salim asks, is there one module or are there a number of modules, each specific to one activity? Do we have to buy all of the modules?
No, you don't. I didn't plan to get into the commercial side, but just to give you kind of a slice idea on what we are talking here. There are, I think you're going to see it shortly here, and you tell me if you can see it. Lisa, you can be my indicator.
Will do.
Okay, tell me if you see it.
Okay, I see PowerPoint right now.
You see PowerPoint or you see PDF?
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint should go away.
Mhm.
So I'll stop sharing.
Yes.
And I'll
perfect.
share again. Oh yeah, I'll share again. Give me a second. I'll try to share again. I can answer this question better. Screen, share. I'm not sure you can see it now.
Not
Can
yet.
you see some? Not
It's,
yet.
I see things moving, but okay. Here's inspection manager positioning, packaging.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So to answer this question, there are, I call it 3 families. This is relevant for small job shop that has all the functionality that you need from start to finish. There is a factory package. It gives you the same ability as job shop, but it's sitting on a centralized database, stored on a server, and then there is a floating license. Then this enables you more functionality of automated machine data import. I think the team at Chick Machine mentioned it, that we collect data automatically from any inspection tool. So there are packages that enable you certain amount of licenses. So you don't need to buy everything. And you can grow as you need. You can even scale up from one package to another, where the previous package will credit you when you scale up to the second package. There are also multiple modules that you can add on. You can add SPC as a module, the PQP, or model-based definition, and so on and so forth. Okay. Other question, Lisa?
Yes, indeed. Here's the next one.
Okay.
To stand up this solution, can the backend be installed on a Windows 10 PC or is installing on a server preferred?
So it can be installed on any Windows machine, and our database can be installed on the I call it a dedicated machine. Doesn't need to be a server. Although if our customers having their SQL server, then Inspection Manager can be installed on their SQL server. Just plug it in on your SQL. So it can work on both.
Perfect. Here is another question. It says, what or how is the situation of non-conformity out of SPC? How can it be managed through corrective actions with specific assignment to process engineering, maintenance, collaboration, team, etc., and define preventative action to avoid the problem to occur again?
Amazing question, and we will need to devote, I don't know who asked it. Amazing question, great question. We will have to do it one-on-one probably and show you the process. How actually, what triggered non-conformance, out of tolerance or whatever it is, how it's handled as an integrated non-conformance in the system, the corrective action. But we handle it, but we need time to show it, how it really works. But yes, we have it.
Sure, we will take that offline then after the session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here is one more. Does or will HighQA integrate with a DPLM system where design is stored and configured, managed to pull and consume designs autonomously, specifically CAD models, but also 2D drawings as applicable?
I was in a large meeting today talking specifically about this. It really depends. When we talk about PLM, product lifecycle management, it's mainly data about the data. So we work very closely with PLM system when data stored there, but actually we're talking about file that we create and store automatically in the PLM, and the PLM in many cases, and again, we probably need to take it offline to address it in more details, but the idea is that in many cases, PLM are check-in, check-out, like making sure that we're working on the right revision. And that's something that we, of course, support. We are dealing with the content. So once the content is handled in Inspection Manager and it's done, completed, or saved as automatically, then it's saved in the PLM system. So the data source is the PLM, but the content is, of course, within the file is HighQA. And I believe that that was the question, but again, I will be very glad to communicate, one-on-one to get deeper into in those details. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, here's one final question, and then we are just about out of time. Can you connect and gather data from an OGP Smart Scope?
Yes. Any inspection tools that, if you remember here, I'm going to use it again with your permission, somewhere here. Any inspection tool, you can see my screen, Lisa, you will be my
Yes, I can see.
QA. Okay. Any inspection tool, and by the way, I don't know if this is OGP, but this is optical machine. Any inspection tool that generates digital results, we get data. It can be OGP, or it can be any inspection tool, CMM, VMM, Equator, and of course, all those inspection tools that are connected wirelessly or wired, okay, or Bluetoothly. And then, of course, when we talk about manual inspection tool, I think Bob and the team at Chick Machine mentioned gauge, micrometer that are not generating digital results are entering manually on keypad data directly to the IMX IME that works on a tablet or a PC. To the question, yes, we support OGP and any inspection tool on the globe.
Okay, great. Well, Sam, if you can advance to the very last slide, we are at the conclusion of our webinar. Thank you again, Sam, and also Bob, Bobby, and Jacob for sharing your information. It was very helpful. Thank you to the audience for joining us for the hour. We hope that you can join us for our next session. And we will put up on the screen here in just a second some of our contact information. If any questions come to mind following the session, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Bye.